Battle of the Challenges podcast with Vincent Cloud.
And Hardcore Dave.
Oh, I was expecting softcore, to be honest with you, but you know.
Well, I mean, it's probably more accurate. I could dream, can I? I'm gonna go with hardcore for now, but.
Well, we're discussing 2 episodes, so in mid-episode, if you want to switch back up to softcore, yeah, it's up to you.
All right.
But let's talk about the final. War of the Worlds 2, episode 15, A Tale of Two Countries, watched by .82. Do you care?
No. Everybody just watches this shit off the internet anyways, right? Television ratings, that's been relevant in years.
I bought mine on my Xbox. That's how I watched it.
Really?
Yeah.
I DVR it, so I guess I'm part of the .82, perhaps.
Do they count DVR recordings?
I hope so. I think so. I have no idea.
How do they know?
I don't work for the cable company, man. I have no insider knowledge.
Okay. We'll go about it this way. I originally thought I was going to record alone, so I wrote it up, chopped it up in a weird way, but almost everything's covered.
All right. I'll try and stick to your script as best I can.
Read the goddamn
Okay.
script. All right,
Remind me, well, what are my opinions on Zach again? I forget. Okay.
I have all your lines highlighted. That's fine.
Oh, that's sorry. I'll be quiet.
Okay, so let's start off with TJ, where he's like, some of you have played a game of deception and politics, and then the camera just veers off and looks at Paulie and Cara. But I wanted to press pause and say, TJ, I believe everyone's been political and has deceived in some way. This is the most political season we've had in a long time. Almost everyone has a game to play within the politics. The thing is, Cult of Cara just happened to win. You know, they had big numbers, but they also stayed true to each other. The only person that veered off was CT, and that was at the end, which made sense. But this is just something that happened. Everyone could complain that's not part of the Cult of Cara, that it was political, but they played, they just lost. You know, that's how I see it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely a very political season because if you look at Team USA, how many of those people had been into an elimination? I believe, off the top of my head, I can only think that Ninja was in elimination, but I don't think anybody
Ashley
else.
at the very end.
Yeah, at the very end.
In the super elimination, remember?
Yeah,
They called
but
it super.
Zach, Leroy, Cara, Paulie, Cam, they all stayed out of eliminations.
Yeah.
Because it was so political. It's just all about the alliance and the deception, like TJ was talking about. And
Leroy and Zach, they both didn't go in because they never went against them at all.
yeah, and then because every week, Cara and Paulie's alliance, they put in the people they wanted every time. So they basically got to cherry pick who they wanted on their team for the final. And Paulie and Cara were the general manager picking their baseball team that's going to go out there. So they were picking their team.
Well, it's not like they picked their team. It's just that the alliance was the team, right? That's who's all going to get to the end. The only people that aren't there is because they wouldn't agree with them. They could have, Theo could have easily worked with Cara had he left his goddamn team. You know, he had so many options to do it. And CT, again, he's on the other side, but he's working with the Cult of Cara. D, Rogan, they're all working with the Cult of Cara. You know, this alliance worked. That's all it is. You know, you can't really say oh my God, only Paul and Cara played this way. No, a lot of people played the political game. You know.
Yeah, I mean their entire alliance played the game, and that's how it worked out. But to me, the thing that I like to point out and what I think about is the fact that their entire team is constructed the way it is because that's the way they wanted it. It really is, because they didn't want to ever get rid of Leroy, even though he is he's not a good swimmer, he's not good at puzzles. They wanted to keep Ninja for some reason. I don't know why. I mean, I guess she did good last year in the final. She finished it. But I don't really look at her as a super awesome player. But they protected these people, and by never, because anytime you have an alliance, you always need to trim the fat in that alliance and knock off some of your own people. But they never seem to do that. They had these large numbers, and they just kept going for the people. Even like once they outnumbered the other people in the other alliance, they still targeted those people rather than ever turning on their own and trimming the fat on their own alliance.
I think I don't know. I'm not absolutely sure about alliances trimming the fat within themselves. It's usually when they're pitted against each other or where they have no other choice, like they're backed up in a corner. Because I'm trying to think, like JEK, they never really turned on each other. I mean, you
They
could
didn't have
say
any fat though on that alliance.
No
like
fat.
they were all top flight competitors.
yeah. And then you think Team San Diego and their giant alliance they had on Battle of Seasons 2 or 2012, like they just kind of brought each other there. I think we're going to get kind of distracted by the fact that producers are just going to make it a hindrance to have done so well overall the season, because for the first time ever, from what I can recall, there's the winning team, the bigger team was never, punished for that. It's weird. This is the first time ever where, like, if you have a bigger team, well, now you have more weight. Like, that's never been done before. It's crazy. But let's get to that chronologically, if we can.
Okay.
All right, because we have more lines here.
Oh,
TJ
yeah,
says,
back to the script. Back to the script.
TJ said, he's like, I hope you are comfortable with the decision you guys made because your team will live or die by it. Well, a lot of that isn't very true. Again, they're not going to live or die by the fact that they played a political game. I mean, right now, they're going to get more weight for having a larger team by 2 more players than UK. US has 7 players, UK has 5,
Yeah.
It's crazy. Because they're the bigger team by 2 players, they're going to get 40 pounds more than the other team.
That's 40 pounds is like literally nothing though. It's nothing. 40 pounds. There's 4 people carrying the gurney. That's 10 pounds. 10 pounds more. Like, that's really nothing on a big ass gurney like that. I don't think that's a big penalty at all.
But why give it anyways? You know what I'm saying? Because
you have more people to rotate. You have to do the island. You have to lap it 4 times.
Right.
And you have 4 people who can carry it. So on Team UK, you only have 1 substitute. Only 1 person can sit out and walk by it and not carry it.
Right.
And then there's 3 people for Team USA.
Right. Okay, so right now we're talking about... See, I'm not even getting to the overall point. Is that, okay, they're given 40 more pounds than the other team. But we're going to run into a crazy thing when it comes to just straight up production values. This gurney's going to be it's not going to be very good. It's going to start snapping and shit. And this is my theory, is that these gurneys weren't going to carry too much. They carry, because UK carries 100 pounds worth of sand on top of what the actual gurney weighs, right?
Yep.
They don't have problems with the weight. 40 extra pounds, the bamboo snapping and falling apart. Like, they eventually start cheating, quote unquote, because they had to. They couldn't literally carry it on the gurney. And I just think maybe these gurneys were never meant to carry that much weight in the first place, or it was just a last second thing, like, oh, let's give them more pounds, more weight. Yeah. And imagine had the team been even bigger, been more successful, and kept Laurel, and kept Wes, and kept Johnny. The fucking thing would be snapping anyways, That's my idea. That's my theory.
Yeah, I think the gurneys were definitely very weak and brittle, the way they put them together. Even, like, watching it, you can hear TJ say at the beginning, like, if your gurney is to break, or anything, you have to keep carrying it, and something like that. There's a line like that, and you can tell that they added that line, like, after it was not something he said live. It was, like, something they put in post-production, like, because it was like he was addressing the fact that it was going to break down and not really hold up.
Yeah, it was nuts. I mean, there's so much more information, so many rules that are played out or that are set down in front of us. But I also have to remember, or have to bring up, the gurneys, right? They're not good, right? We've seen this plenty of times where, like, production shit just kind of falls apart. You know, like they didn't think. Like some things would just snap and cheap. Remember when Brad lost to Leroy because his walls collapsed or something like that? I don't know. It happens.
Yeah.
It happens all the time. Like,
yeah, that was like a couple years ago.
yeah, like it's just shitty sometimes. They gotta, well, whatever. I could go on and on about that.
Yeah.
And then also, remember when on Bloodlines, where the men were given like 140 pounds to carry on their back, and the women were only given like 40 or something like that, or 50?
Yes,
right.
That's what I would. Oh my gosh, I'm glad you brought that up because I wanted to talk about that.
Yeah,
because that was a very similar thing where it was like, okay, because you're a guy, you have to carry way more than the girls do. It was not equal at all, like, and it was very excessive.
yeah.
I think with this one, I think they kind of corrected it because I think only 20 pounds more, it's not that much.
No, 40 pounds more.
Or 20 pounds per bag.
Yeah,
so, yeah, 2 more bags, so it's 40 pounds. I don't think 40 pounds is a lot. Like, I was putting sandbags in the back of my pickup truck, and they're 70 pounds apiece. And I'm lifting the 70 pounds. Like, I am not an athlete. I do not work out. I'm in worse shape than Pauly, and I could do it, you know?
Yeah, but
At
this
least,
is...
maybe
this
I'm in
is,
better shape than Pauly. Who knows?
This is for 16 pounds. We're going to see Pauly carry a lot of the weight for the women. You know, like, it's just not the same. Like, Ninja doesn't do very good carrying it. I don't really see Cam... No, Cam did. One time Cam had it all by herself.
Yeah, Cam carried it twice, and Ashley carried it twice. Ninja only carried it once. But that was when she was carrying it with Pauly, and that's the second lap where Pauly just gassed out, was when Ninja was out there. Yeah. Like, Ninja really, I think, hindered that team. That's why I was talking about, like, not trimming the fat. Like, I don't think Ninja should have been there. I think you want to have, like, the most elite players on your team, and there are certain people that I don't think are elite, and I think Ninja is one of them.
Although she will do the best out of the Team US in this final. She's the first one to cross. Come on.
Well, that's because it was just a puzzle. She was the first person to get a puzzle, and that was the only thing she did good.
She also swam.
It was the only thing she did good was the puzzle. I was like,
no,
okay, good job.
No, there's other stuff, and I'll point them out just fine. I'll feel great about it.
All right.
Okay. Finally, I do want to...
You're not going to change my mind. It's the worst.
This isn't... Okay. Real quick, Pauly is left behind in this episode. That's when he's like, get up, you son of a bitch, and shit like that, right?
Yeah.
So
he's punching himself in the stomach and in the legs. He's like, wake up, legs, work.
There was a moment where I'm like, okay, so there's no Gauntlet 3 rule, because they were perfectly fine leaving him behind. A lot of people get confused when they talk about, like, when you have a big team and someone's out, you lose, because that's what happened in Gauntlet 3. No, they specifically mentioned it in Gauntlet 3, and when Big Easy did fall, their team didn't win. That was the big thing. But it was so weird. Like, people up until that point thought, like, oh, that's what they're always told, or something like that. And then the people watching afterwards was like, be careful, don't leave anyone behind. No, like, the rules are totally different. This is like UFC rules different from state to state, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
It's like they're not following the unified rules.
Yeah, unified rules. There you go. Okay, another thing I want to address really fucking quick, because you even mentioned this thing, and I was like, oh, Dave, no. Some people are like, historically, it's better to have a smaller team than a bigger team, right? It wasn't just you, Dave, but it was like Pat Mayo Hour. You ever watch that shit?
No, I don't want to.
He's from DraftKings.
I have no idea who that is. DraftKings?
Yeah.
Oh, I like DraftKings.
Okay, well, now you're back on board, Dave. But everyone was saying, like, it's fucking, like, it's so obvious. You have to have a smaller team. Historically, they win more. And I was sitting there, I was like, I don't know. Like, my OCD won't let this rest. I got to look it up. I got to do the research, and I did it. Okay. Bigger team versus smaller team is 4-2. All right? It's better to have a bigger team. The bigger team in Gauntlet 1, 9 road rulers defeated 5 real worlders in Gauntlet 1. Right?
Okay.
8 road rulers defeated 4 real worlders. God, this is wordy. In Inferno 1. Okay? 4 good guys. This is the exception, though. Here's the 4 good guys defeated 7 badasses in Inferno 2. Remember
That's
that?
yeah, and that's the season I watched most recently was that one. So that's like
good
that
season.
stuck out in my head.
Yeah, that's why you think so. You know,
Yeah.
like it's so weird. Something happens and everyone's opinion changes except for mine. I'm just like, no, it doesn't compute.
Well, there's like a recency bias,
Oh,
because
there
you
you
think
go.
of
Oh my God,
what
yeah.
you've seen most recently.
I like it.
Wasn't there Cutthroat as well?
That's a really interesting point. I wasn't even going to mention that, but I did. Okay, so technically, the bigger team of those three was the gray team with 5. Then the red team had 4, and then the blue team had 2, right?
Yep.
But when the red team crossed the finish line, they had 4, and the gray team had 3. So technically, like how do you judge that? The gray team had 5, lost, but that's because 2 of them dropped out. So
They had too many players. They had the most players, and they lost.
but then throughout the final, though, there was then the red team became the bigger team,
Because
and they won.
wow, you're just like twisting the facts.
No,
The bigger team at the beginning. It's about who enters, and when you press go and you from the start, who has the most players.
but mid-final it
Great team.
changed. It altered All of a
because
sudden, red
people
team-
gassed out because the bigger team was weaker because they had weak players on it. You didn't want to bring it up.
no. Okay, well, hold on. Can I continue, please?
Okay,
Yeah.
I just want to say that like having a smaller team can be beneficial, but like if you have like Sarah and Kellyanne, where it's only 2 people, that's not beneficial. You don't want to just have 2 people. It's not like, oh, if you're just a team of 1, you're gonna do awesome. Like unless you're Turbo, But but like you want to have a well-rounded like group of 4 people or 5 people that are all very well-rounded and good players. It's once you get enough people, there's too many variables. Where someone can gas out and you can lose a player. Like,
can I continue? Because then that will completely.
whoa, Packers scored a touchdown and I missed it,
discourage.
man.
Oh, it'll discourage. Okay. 9 rookies defeat 7 veterans in Gauntlet 2. 2 more, the bigger team win yet again. 6 rookies defeat 10 veterans in Gauntlet 3. So this is the only other time, where the smaller team won. And that was the whole Big Easy scandal. Yeah.
Okay.
And then finally, 5 champions defeat 2 challengers in the ruins.
Mm.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, it's when it's 5 versus 2. That was just unfortunate for a final.
They weren't doing that bad in comparison.
No,
to
they did really well, but that's a lot for just 2 people to do.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's speed this process up a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have the rules, and this is where TJ goes. You may not let anybody carry the bags. It must be on the gurney. U.S. does this because their gurney falls apart from 40 pounds more than U.K. It's crazy. It's the gurneys. We've seen it time and time again. We've already mentioned that the gurneys just probably weren't meant to carry much weight at all. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't think they were necessarily breaking down just because of that 40 pounds. I think because of the way they were handling the gurney, the way they drop it on the ground, and because Zach was getting pissed off at Paulie because Paulie's like, I can't go at this pace. We got to slow down, and he he drops it down to the ground, and that was the same side that ended up breaking was that left side. So I don't think it was necessarily just that 40 pounds.
He says if you break any rule, it'll be a time penalty, but he never says for how long, because we'll address this where eventually the UK makes 1 violation and gets a 10-minute deduction, and then 3 rules, two official, I think it was 3 though, but 2 official rules were violated, and they'll get the same amount of time, 10 minutes. It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
So
they
when
they just did it to cancel each other out, and they just arbitrarily came up with the 10 minutes because they're like, how far back are they? Well, they're about like a mile back. Okay, we'll give them 10 minutes. Like, they were just making those times up.
Yeah, this is a very, production's got their fucking fingerprints all over this thing, man. Okay, so if your gurney breaks, you will not get a new one. Seems pretty harsh. Like, why
Yeah.
not? And you may not intentionally tamper opponent's gurney in any way. We'll later CCT, like shove, do the choo-choo on it, run a train on them. Team to get done first will have an advantage in stage 2. They never say what the advantage is, but it's a lousy 5 minutes. That's crazy,
Yeah.
considering how much UK beats them to the
Yeah,
finish line first.
you can win by an hour, but it's like, hey, it's only going to turn into 5 minutes.
So bad. It's
They
terrible.
do this shit, and it's infuriating.
Let's talk about checkpoint number 1, leverage up, where you have to catapult a coconut into a thing.
basket?
How'd you feel? Like, did this, in terms of shit you've seen in the final,
I'm okay with it because it was easier. I hate the ones where they got to do this shit, and they're trying to get a rock like into a coffee can that's 30 feet away, and it's just impossible to make it in.
that's never happened on a final. Dave is just being hyperbolic. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking of Battle of the X's too. What the heck was that? Where it just took forever.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I get what you're saying in general. Just like, yeah.
Was
But the
that
thing
not
is,
like
though,
a rock into a coffee can? Like it was a small.
it was something like that. It was like some sort of seesaw thing too, right?
Yeah. And then like on Bloodlines in that final, what was that? They had something goofy like that with a catapult. Was there like beer cups or
Yeah,
glasses
they had to
or
drink
something?
and yeah,
They had to try and make it in, and you had to drink.
right. The only thing that
This was-
I have a problem with is that only 2 people really did the catapulting. You know what I mean? I felt like everyone had to contribute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. That was
so
okay because it was better than a freaking puzzle because there's so many puzzles in
yeah, Jesus Christ.
this final that I was okay. That it was whatever. It could have been another eating challenge, to be honest, because there was only one portion that was eating. They could have made it eating to have 2 different portions,
They could have
like not like an excessive amount or something super gross, but just kind of mix it up.
yeah, like
You
eat
know,
the
make
coconuts
the,
you don't
make
make
the
or
coconuts
something
in,
like that.
and then
Crack the coconut, eat it.
yeah, it's good. It's electrolytes, coconut water. It's delicious.
Oh yeah,
It's good for you.
coconut.
Polly could have
milk.
used it.
Oh, he
Stick a
could've.
straw right in there. Get that sweet nectar.
And it'll be just as easy as puncturing a sun. The other
Capri
one.
Sun.
Capri Sun. Yeah. Thank you, Dave. Thank you. So I just want to say real quick, CT and Jordan performed the seesaw thing for the UK. Zach and Leroy performed the thing for the US. At first, remember, the car's like, just jump on it, Zach. He's like, yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. He jumps, bam.
Oh yeah, he just like run and leaps at it. And I thought he was gonna biff it and fall, but he just like launched it. I'm like, oh, that's gonna go a mile over, and it really didn't. It was pretty on target.
It was crazy because they could clearly see that Team US is like, they're just kind of pushing it down and stuff. So it was crazy for cars like, just jump on it. It's crazy.
Well, maybe she watched the other team like come up short, and they're like, oh, you gotta really put some oomph into it.
Checkpoint number 2, number crunch with the U.S. wins. Okay, so I think this is in order of Zach, for the U.S. anyways. Zach, Polly, Cam, Ninja, Leroy, Ashley, and then Cars last, right? That's when she starts to break down and stuff like that. But to be fair, I wrote some of these equations down that they had to solve, and I think Cara got the worst one. Should
Oh,
we
yeah?
investigate? Should we look?
Yeah. Oh,
All
that's
right,
awesome.
so-
You wrote this down. I gotta
So
check it out.
not everyone, because they didn't assign everyone's. They showed some, but you don't know who got what. But Zach got count 7s in row 1, right? So just one row he has to work with. Multiply by 7 and then subtract 7. Those are very simple numbers to work with. We look at Polly. It's add last numbers in every row and subtract total of all the first numbers in every row. So right then and there, it is kind of simple again, where it's like very basic.
Just
To
add the
end-
right side, subtract the left
Yep.
side.
We don't know what Cam gets, but she finishes 3rd, followed by Ninja, Leroy, Ashley. And Cara gets count the 8s in line 1, subtract from number of 8s in line 6, add 6, and subtract 8. And, she's starting to cry and shit. I write this down as this is a ritual. She's won 2 finals, and both times she's had a breakdown. It's just a thing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm unfazed. A lot of people were like, really ripping on Cara, like, oh my gosh, she's breaking down. I'm like, she does it all the time, guys. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I don't know.
That's her thing. It is a ritual. Like
Yeah.
Cara always breaks down and cries, Zach always starts freaking out and yelling at people.
Yeah.
Like, they all have their things that they do. Like, Leroy starts crying in a confessional. You know, it's they all have their gimmick.
No, that's a new gimmick right there.
It is
for
new,
Leroy.
but
all right. So Team UK, they're second overall. Tori just gets add all eights and divide by 2. That's really simple. Jordan gets count number of times 6 appears. Then multiply 3 times. CT gets count the 2s in 4th and 5th row and multiply by 4. D goes, and then Rogan's last. He has to count total of both 3s and 7s, subtract that by 7, then add 3.
okay, so Rogan's was very similar to Kara's.
Yeah, it seems
For,
like it. A little bit more complex.
I mean, I don't consider myself a very smart person, but I don't find all of those things that difficult. I was looking at it and I was like, oh, that's easy.
But you do realize that one is more difficult than the other, regardless. You know, you like if you were doing this, you're like, oh, this one was simpler than this one. If you had to do all the problems, right?
I don't think it's more difficult. I just think it's longer. So it's
Yeah,
because it's the same thing. It's just like, okay, you just have a second step to the equation where you're not just like adding this and adding this. You add this, subtract this, and then you have to, you know, add this and subtract. They're really kind of just like doubling the equation.
Yeah. So Rogan and Kara got the longer ones.
Yeah.
It's
But you know, if it makes, I mean, did they do it on purpose just because they're like, oh, we can make Kara cry?
I don't know if they assigned. They didn't show if like everyone had an assigned thing.
Well, I think it was probably just random because didn't they have like different pillar boards that they flip the thing over and then that's like, you know, that was their question. I think they just randomly walked up to one.
Yeah.
So Kara has that shitty luck where she gets a difficult math problem.
All right, let's go to checkpoint number 3, basketballing. UK is going to win this. Where this is another kind of toss a ball into a basket.
Yeah, into a bowl.
If you don't, though, you have to eat a bowl of bugs, scorpion on a stick, and a live grub being burned in a shot glass in the hot Thailand sun. Yeah. Like, this was terrible to look. It was just like, oh my god.
That grub, it reminded me of The Lion King, where Timon and Pumbaa are eating all the grubs.
Yeah, but at least
what it looked like.
Yeah, but they weren't like trying to fucking cook them though. They weren't like bringing like a magnifying glass and like burning this fucking poor worm and then eating it. Like, could you imagine being in that little glass container under the heat? You know, you're just frying. It was terrible to look at.
They weren't frying. They're in liquid.
They're
staying cool
in a
nice
pool of
bath.
In a pool of their own excrement.
Probably. But the grubs,
it was very unsettling for me. I was just like, oh my god. They're just like crying out in pain. If they could talk, man.
Wow, you're like part of like PETA for bugs? Like,
yeah, where the fuck was PETA here?
Oh my gosh, the poor bugs. All the bugs that died in the making of this show.
I happen to watch A Bug's Life alone in the theater, and you tend to bond with those movies that you see alone in the theater.
That's now it all makes sense. You watched A Bug's Life.
Watched A Bug's Life. I'm a huge Dave Foley fan.
I like Dave Foley. He's a funny guy.
Yeah, and Hayden Panettiere, but much later. Okay. All right, CT and Tori don't have to eat on Team UK. They make it. So good for them, right?
Yeah.
The only person on Team US that doesn't have to eat is Ninja. So there you go, Dave. There you go. The only person that made it. Your worst enemy.
I mean, that's somewhat random, I would say. To be able to make it in there.
He still doesn't give it to her. Still doesn't give it to her. Oh, man.
Yeah, right. Well, she's lucky because if she had to eat, she wouldn't have done good at it, I bet. She probably would have choked it down. I don't know. Is Ninja good at eating stuff? I don't recall at all.
Well,
I guess she's fine.
Your accomplishments are reduced to luck, Ninja.
Well, if she wasn't so damn annoying, I'd give her the benefit of the doubt. But, you know, she's annoying all the time.
You know,
so I don't like it.
You know when she got that basket and didn't have to eat? I was like, woo, woo, woo. Like,
I'm going to make a bunch of weird noises, a bunch of weird faces, because I'm Ninja.
Now remember back when Tori was in that space where we're like, oh my god, you're doing too much with your face, your overexpression. All right, so I want to mention this though. This is a big part of the final. Polly holds Jordan in high regard. He compares the two of them to Rocky versus Apollo. He wants to beat him so bad. He's like, if you want to be the best, you have to beat the best. And he basically kills himself trying to keep up with their pace. And there was also a great moment where Paulie was like, "Come on, pass this, bro," and shit like that, and he wouldn't let him pass. And Paulie has a giddiness in competition. If Carr wasn't there, I think Paulie would just be loving the fact that he's going against Jordan and shit like that. Like, you know, it's crazy because Cam actually tells them not to let them pass, which I thought is a good point for Cam. You know, like Cam was like, "Don't let them pass," and that kind of wrote that scene right there where Paulie's like, "That's a good idea," you know.
Yeah.
And that eventually gets the CT shoving them in the bushes and shit, you know.
Yeah.
So that was a nice little boss moment from Cam. I like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're blaming it on Cam? All right.
Not blame, no. I thought. All right, so
that's all I hear.
When Paulie's falling down, though, again going back to his fascination with Jordan, Ashley says, "Imagine what Jordan's gonna say, Paulie." You know, and Carter's like, "That's not helping."
But she's right.
And that's when Paulie's like, fucking, you know, they leave him behind, and he's like, "Get up, you son of a bitch."
He's laying there like half dead on the ground. Okay, so Paulie, you mentioned that Paulie likens his rivalry to Jordan to like Rocky versus Apollo.
Yes.
Okay. What did not happen in the Rocky movies before Rocky fought Apollo? Rocky didn't hey, go against this boxer. Hey, go against this boxer. Hey, go against this boxer. And Apollo just constantly beats the three guys, and Rocky's constantly trying to not fight Apollo. That didn't happen. Rocky fucking stood up like a man and went against Apollo and fought him.
He just wanted to go the distance, and Paulie did. Right?
Yeah, he did. But Paulie, you're
story.
not Rocky at all in this scenario. He did everything in his power to avoid facing Jordan.
But I think this is just in terms of the final, not the overall season. I think when it comes to a final, you know, Jordan's already a 2-time winner at this point, and Paulie, that's what I think.
But you have to look at a big picture because it's.
Then it doesn't work anymore.
He's been battling against Jordan this entire season, and he's not been able to get rid of him.
He goes the distance. Damn it! All right, cool. All right, so real quick again. I keep on saying real quick, but what layups, Jordan? What layups, Zach? Zach's and I just want to say this right here. Zach and Leroy technically lost their team checkpoint in the catapult thing, right? So Zach, you're technically a layup because you didn't win that, right? Just stick with me.
It was literally a minute of time.
Hold on.
It's nothing.
And then Ashley and Cara were the slowest players on Team US, but they technically won that checkpoint. Remember, they were faster than UK.
But winning a checkpoint doesn't do anything. It doesn't give you any added time bonuses or anything.
What?
It just means you can start on the next lap.
Well,
and that's
yeah,
where
I'm saying they sucked, but they still beat the other team, right? I'm throwing all these technicalities, trying to change your.
But
opinion.
did they arrive and start these checkpoints at the same exact time?
The math thing, so. It was pretty close.
So I don't know how you can say they finished it before the other team, so they were better.
Oh, I got.
We don't know when they really started.
I got more that you're gonna be like, no. and then Ninja, who Zach hates the most, was the only player to not have to eat bugs and shit.
Yeah, I know that. You just said that.
Okay, so it is the most dramatic part is the wait. To be honest with you, they didn't have to do this. We would have had a more exhilarated, really more neck and neck race had the weight thing never been introduced. You know, it probably would have been more exciting. You know, I think this was a mistake of the producers just saying penalize the bigger team. It's weird.
I disagree.
Yeah,
I think it was just Paulie being sucky. I don't think it had to do with the 40 pounds extra on there.
But we also acknowledge that that shot where Ninja wasn't holding it correctly. Paulie was doing all the work.
Yeah,
remember?
Paulie has both of the rods are on his shoulders. Ninja's behind him, holding up the one side. It's total horrible technique. Plus, He's got, who was it? Was it Zach or Leroy up front holding it?
Oh yeah.
And it was Leroy who's up front holding it.
Yeah.
And Leroy is like 7 inches taller than Paulie. Paulie's like 5'6" or 5'7". Like, he's a short dude. And Leroy's over 6 feet tall. And so the whole gurney is slanted backwards. You're putting more weight on Paulie. Like,
Yeah.
it was like Paulie should have been in front. Leroy should have been in the back, because that's how the Team UK did it. CT was always in the back when he was holding it.
Mhm.
I think a lot of their technique on how they carried it hurt them. I think Paulie, the fact that he didn't take a break, but like Zach, he did the first lap, and then Zach was immediately like, hey, I'm going to take a break
Yeah, he did.
and make these other people pull
Kara,
their weight.
Ninja.
Yeah,
in
he's
there.
like, Kara, Ninja, get in there. And it's like, no, if you have someone who's not good at carrying things, you don't put him in that role. Like, Ninja could not help it out at all. So Paulie is carrying all this weight because Ninja is not carrying it. That's why Paulie got gassed out, I think. It's because he was in poor shape, and the fact that Ninja was carrying that rear portion with him.
Remember what he
Another
was...
reason why Ninja sucks.
I remember-
She couldn't carry her weight, man.
Remember when he was telling Leroy at the beginning of the episode, he's like, I peaked. I'm peaking right now.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I got all the gas.
Oh, it was amazing. It was so hilarious.
But he does cross, though. Paulie does go the distance with Apollo. Come on. You gotta give it to...
I don't know.
And instead of Adrian, he's like, Kara.
All
Kara's
he-
like, shut the fuck up. Shut up. Oh, my God.
Yeah, Paulie finished, but all he did was drag his entire team down the entire time. Yup.
Eventually, remember they leave Paulie for dead, and eventually Paulie gets up. He's like, "Get up, you son of a bitch!" Right
Yeah.
now. And eventually he catches up with them because they're taking breaks as well. Like, I don't know, it's a tough. I don't know. It's weird. It's fucking weird. Okay, let's keep going. We got more shit to talk about. God damn it. Team UK is stopped. They're like, CT, you tampered. You know, you pushed them into the bushes. You wait here 10 minutes and stuff. And once again, nobody, regardless of how angry they are and paranoid and whatever, no one yells at CT. No one ever yells at CT. You know, CT's been throwing his weight around here. He's been pulling rank on people and shit, and no one really gets mad at him. You know, like Jordan's super cocky and like saying all this shit to people, but he's not saying shit when he's with CT. You know,
That's true.
yeah.
You don't mess with CT. Even if he's in the wrong, you don't bat an eye or anything. You just, oh, okay.
I go back to their like, relationship in Free Agents. That's when CT was like barking at Jordan outside of the bar, and then you cut to them on the bus, and Jordan's just kind of sitting there while CT's behind him, just like, you know, insulting him and shit, like, what? Come on and shit. And Jordan has a good comeback in the confessional, but not actually in person.
Oh, so CT is the alpha and Jordan's the beta.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
So, well, I mean, it was because Jordan was always trying to flex his muscles at Turbo this season.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Maybe it was just because of the language barrier. He thought, like, hey, I can actually outwit this guy and out-talk him.
Yeah. It's so bad. It's
So I think, I don't think they really got upset with that time penalty when they were just waiting around 10 minutes, because they're like, hey, we're ahead right now, and as long as 10 minutes elapses and we're still in the lead and we don't see him, we're okay.
All right. Let's move on to UK. Oh, no. UK is suffering. Oh, my God, I'm misspelling. That threw me entirely off.
Did you
All right,
misspell U.S.?
Let's talk. Yeah. you had
Spelled
two
US.
letters. You had two letters.
Yeah.
All right, so let's address this until we move on to the next episode. Zach's line. You wonder why I wanted to keep strong players. Now you fucking know. And I wanted to, once again, pause. Hold on, Zach. Hold on. Now, Zach, you never actually stood up and fought against the Cult of Kara and the idea of what they were doing. This is why you're in the final in the first place, because you didn't make waves, you know, you allowed the political things to happen, but you never actually stood up against it. And that's why you were never thrown into elimination, you know? I feel like...
I mean, he didn't stand up against it in like in a way of like, in like the way he voted or against the alliance, but I'm sure Zach has said in many conversations with Paulie, like, hey, I think we need to do this. But Paulie would just disregard that and be like, hey, we want we're gonna send Georgia in. You know,
rather
than sending a ninja, we're gonna send home someone from the other team rather than.
Right, but we needed to see those scenes. I needed to see Zach actually say something, because I think Anissa is really good at this, and like there's other people that are really good at where they don't say something during the moment, but they perfectly articulate what's going wrong in the confessional. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they really paint the narrative, but like if you look at the video, they're just kind of standing there letting shit happen. Okay, so going on to War of the Worlds 2. Actually, let's pause. You want to take a pause? You want to take a break?
Sure.
Let's break.